right, now we are ready for our art criticism of Sally Morgan's work. So the first thing we have to fill in is the artist name, and as I just said, Sally Morgan. Oh, that's all the capitals. The title of this work is Handprint. Pretty self-explanatory, you know, handprint. And it was created in 2010, not terribly long ago, but not super recent. Go ahead and fill those things out, and then we will move on to the describe section. Alright, so for the describe slide, it asks you to list 3 things. Only 3 because this is a fairly simple image. So I think the first one, I'm just going to say it for everybody. There's a hand. We did it! Now we gotta do 2 more things. What else do we see in this picture? Alright, so we have like the gold posts. There's also gold on the hand. We could say there's a fabric background. This is actually painted onto, gold leaf onto a piece of glass. So there's shadows from the glass. That's actually 5 things. You only need 3. Go ahead and pick 3 of those things, write them in the describe section, and then we will move on to analyze. Alright, analyze. This artwork was created by gluing gold leaf sheets. So it's this very thin layer of gold that by gluing an adhesive onto a surface, you then lay the gold on top of it and it sticks to the glue, and then you can just take a brush and brush it away from any of the areas the glue is not on, and it'll leave just whatever glue design is. So this one, my guess would be that they painted the adhesive onto their hand, stamped their hand onto the piece of glass, washed their hand, and then applied the gold leaf to that piece of glass, and then it was mounted on the backing, I believe it's linen. Yes, so it's 22 karat gold on a linen wall. So for this one, how does the material and the technique affect the values in the artwork? You want to use complete sentences and use the vocab terms. So the vocab terms for value were tint and shade and tone. We're not really going to talk about tone today so much, but I want you to talk about tint and shade. So tints are the lightest area. Shades are the darkest area. So we could say there are tints in the highlights of the gold leaf. And these are created, it's how it's affected by the material. These are created by, anybody? Anybody want to think science class? Light reflecting / shining off the gold. So the light hits the gold, it reflects back, that's what makes the really bright parts. We can say there are shades in, where are the darkest shades? I mentioned it before on the describe slide. Anybody? In the shadows cast by the gold leaf blocking the light coming through the glass. So this time, those black areas, they're not painted on, they're not anything different. It's literally the shadow from behind, because you're shining a light on the hand. The hand is blocking some of the light coming through because the gold leaf is opaque, you can't see through it. And that causes a cast shadow onto the wall behind it. So you get this extra kind of shadowed element to your artwork that isn't something you control as closely as if you had painted it on yourself. Alright, go ahead and finish adding those to analyze, and then we can go over to the interpret slide. Interpret! Alright, so a little backstory, as always. Sally Morgan is an Australian Aboriginal artist from the Pilbara region of Western Australia. The Australian Aboriginals have created some of the oldest known works or artworks. Some of them date back to 60,000 BC. We used to think about like the beginning of art history as 42,000 BC in the Lascaux cave paintings. Those are located in Lascaux, France. But these actually date farther back. These are even older that have been preserved all of these millennia. The Aboriginals are still existing people. They are, they come from an ancient tradition, but they have come up through time. They still exist as a group, as a tribe. There are actually 5 distinct tribes, and they each have their own dialect. However, the Aboriginals do not have any form of written language. They have a verbal, an oral language that they can speak in, and they have their dialects, but they don't have a written down language. The way they tell their stories is through pictures. So there are different techniques that each tribe uses to show their own. They're all related, but they're different and unique to each tribe. And they rely on these symbolic pictures to tell their stories and to tell their histories of their group. They are only allowed to use their own stories and their own techniques. They have to ask permission if they wanted to do anything other than that, or if their stories overlapped with another group's story. So it's actually a very proud and strict tradition. Sally Morgan doesn't actually work in the traditional style or with the traditional mediums. However, she is still trying to convey a story. What do you think that story is that she's trying to convey? This is very open-ended. All I ask is that you answer in a complete sentence and justify why you think that. Not, I think she was being abducted by aliens. Okay, that's a cool story, but I don't know why you think that. So if you're going to tell me, I think she was being abducted by aliens, and this is her last handprint as she tried to grip a doorway before being pulled away. Okay, I don't know why it's in gold leaf, but sure. Okay, cool. I can stand by that story. That's fine. That's not the reason. And please don't write that as your story, because that's just my example. But go ahead and come up with what you think. What could be the story behind this? Why would she choose to do this? What could this represent? We've talked about hands and their importance throughout art history. What do we think? Or what do you think, really? Go ahead and pause me while you write out the interpret. Unpause me when you are ready for the judgment section. Okay, judgment. That is based on those words. Aesthetic. It's a hard word. You try saying it. Theories. So there's imitationism. Does this artwork look like real life? Formalism is the technique used well. So is the artwork physically created well? And emotionalism. Did it make you feel something? And you need to judge, is this a good painting, and tell me why or why not. Again, as long as you justify your position, you get all of the points. And when you have finished that, you can go ahead and submit this, and you are done with this art criticism.